Hey everybody, welcome to Cali Girl Blog Talk. I'm Callie, thank you for joining me. And today I'll be reviewing Love and Marriage in Huntsville, Season 5, Episode 18, Reunion Part 3. All right, you guys, so they pick up right where they left off, and that is the conversation that was taking place between Kimmy and Destiny, where Kimmy was basically saying, Destiny, what you gone through and what you're explaining happened to you on the show has happened to everybody. So they're having this awkward stare down or whatever. That's when Marcel said, don't come for Kimmy. Destiny was like, I'm not. Kimmy said, oh, she can. But what I'm saying is everybody has filmed and had scenes cut out. In other words, that's no reason why nobody knows anything about your storyline, because all of your scenes just happen to get cut out. Like, stop with the cat. Kimmy said, it's comical to me, because production will be like, you need to talk about this. And she said, I'll be like, don't you see me in trying? Carlos turns to Destiny and says, if we have another season, will we be able to see the relationship that you're currently in? Destiny said, absolutely. Carlos said, okay, and why isn't he here with you now? Destiny said, he wanted to be here. I wanted him to be here, but unforeseen circumstances didn't allow that to happen. He said, okay, has any of the other cast members met him? And she said, yes, some. And Kimmy said, yeah, on FaceTime. Carlos said, in person. And Destiny said, yes. He said, who? She said, Stormy's husband, Courtney, Tiffany and Lou. They've all met him. Carlos said, and it's a long distance relationship. And she said, it is. I'm working on that in therapy. And she clears her throat. I was like, oh, she needs therapy? Does she habitually have relationships that are long distance? Carlos said, look, the reason why the fans are so tough on everybody on this stage is because they are invested in the show. He said, so hopefully me sharing that information with you will give you more motivation, just to make sure that we'll see more of that, because they're asking for it and they want to see it. She responded and said, I'm an open book. We'll see. They move on to the former friendship that Destiny and Melody had. So they begin to run through all of the scenes of this past season to show the fallout of their friendship. However, Carlos just said they were not able to overcome the petty. But to me, it's not a matter of overcoming the petty. It's understanding, I don't want this type of energy in my life. I really don't want to be friends with this person. I don't want this person in my life. Petty, whatever. Everybody has the right to decide who they want in their lives and who they don't want in their lives. But again, that's his opinion, but I'm just saying. Back at the reunion, Carlos said, okay, so Melody, we met Destiny through you, and she got divorced, and it seemed like after that, things began to decline. So what happened to the point where you and Destiny are no longer on speaking terms? She said Destiny did an interview where she brought up the time where Mel came to her house after things took place with her regarding her court situation. And she said Destiny was like, yeah, Mel was only over there for 5 minutes, like basically trying to downplay Mel being there for her. Like, she came, but she really didn't stay. Instead of saying Destiny lied, she said Destiny said things that were not accurate. Destiny chuckled. Mel continued and said, so for me and the boundaries I've set for myself, I'm just slick with it. I'm not going to go back and forth with people. I'm not going to debate with you. You don't even have to agree with my decision, okay? Because it's my life and I'm going to make the decisions. The decisions that are best for me, my peace, and my health, mental health. She said, that's what I do, and that's what I did. Carlos looked at Destiny and said, and how do you feel about what you just heard? Destiny said, it sounds good. He said, okay, well, Destiny, what do you think brought you guys to the point where you are now? Destiny said, well, supposedly last year behind closed doors, there were some things that were said that Melody heard. Now, I remember that part taking place, the situation where Mel is talking about an interview. I didn't know about that, but I do know what Destiny is referring to because that played out on the show. They played the footage from the scene where the conversation took place between Tisha and Destiny, where Destiny was explaining to Tisha, yeah, well, I guess she overheard us talking. I don't know if she was listening through the walls or if she was listening at the door. But because Mel had a room right next door to them, she said she overheard what they were saying. Now, I don't know if they were loud or what. However, Destiny said the only thing that her and Tisha was talking about is what took place at the reunion last year. Carlos said, did you talk shit the get about Melody to Tisha? Destiny said no, and I want Melody to say what she heard. And I'm like, me too. I've been wanting to know. Claiming they had the conversation already, Mel said, you can keep wanting, but we already had the conversation. Destiny responds with the weird, I don't have to want. Okay. What? Destiny said the reality of it is is you are not going to continue to play in my face. Mel said, nobody's playing in your face. I don't even talk to you, sweetie. I said, not the condescending sweetie. They put the camera on Stormy's face and Stormy's mouth is open. Like her mouth dropped. And I'm like, why are you looking so surprised, Stormy? Ready to get into it, okay? Go to war. Not really, but Destiny is like, well, you talking to me now, sweetie. Mel keeps looking at Carlos like paying her dust. Like, I'm not giving you the moment. And I'm like, well, give her something because I'm ready to see this whole thing that took place with y'all. What happened that you heard that we don't know? Destiny said, let's keep it 100. Okay. The reality is this is some bullshit to get. Let's just keep it real. And I'm just kind of wondering, what did you hear, Melody? Because Mel can say what everybody else has done to her and what they've said to her, but it's a mystery as to what she overheard them talking about. And I'm like, did you really hear something? Or was it just the fact that Destiny was talking to your op, period? You know, having a moment where she had your op in her room. Is that the issue? Or did you really hear something? Destiny is like, where we are at this time is BS. Tisha gonna whisper to Marceau, somebody needs a storyline. Carlos said, what you say, Tisha? And she said it louder. Somebody needed a storyline. Carlos said, who is somebody? And Tisha said, whoever came up with the lie. He said, okay, so Tisha, are you denying that you've ever said anything bad about Melody? Tisha said, we was talking about what happened on stage. And I actually told Destiny that I think you should reach out to Mel. Because when Carlos, was asking those questions to Martel, Mel looked sad. And they flashed back to when Carlos was questioning Martel, like, man, in the dead middle of a pandemic where everybody was told to stay in the house, they had to stay in the house. You were outside creeping. And your wife had just had your baby. So you were taking all kind of chances on bringing something that was so fatal for so many people. You were still taking chances. You could have brought that home to your wife, your new baby, and the rest of your family, the rest of your kids. Crazy. Back at the reunion, Tisha said, I felt like she needed a friend. Carlos looked at Melody and said, do you believe that? Melody said, I definitely don't believe that. Tisha said, when you're sad, I do feel for you. I once had love for you. Although you've done a bunch of evil things, okay, you have a dark soul. Reacting, Mel said, oh, wow, like a dark soul. Tisha said, but I still don't hate you. She said, it was you, Melody, that was like, this girl is my enemy. Carlos said, Tisha, why do you believe that Mel has a dark soul? Tisha said, well, she's very pretty on the outside. She is the true definition of the devil in sheep's clothing. And I was like, not the devil. All this time, I thought it was a wolf, but girl, okay. The devil in sheep's clothing. Everybody reacts like, oh, wow, like, dang. Woo. And Mel said, okay, well, if that's the case, you should be very grateful that I'm no longer in your life. Tisha said, well, I'm forgiving. And the thing is, you're not in my life. Mel said, and be happy that I'm not. Tisha said, I'm not happy nor sad. Mel said, yeah, since I have such a dark soul, keep my name out your mouth and just do your thing. Tisha said, well, don't talk about me. Mel said, I don't. I don't. Tisha said, you absolutely do. Mel continued on saying, keep my name out your mouth and just be grateful. Thank God every day because the dark soul was removed from your life. Tisha said, girl, I'm thanking God for a lot of things, but it ain't one of them. Mel said, it should be. Carlos said, Destiny, do you agree with Tisha that Melody has a dark soul? Destiny said, there are things that she does that are very dark. He said, such as... She said, Melody went on national TV and told people that she gave me $6,000 to pay my light bill. Mel said, girl, I did not say it was your light bill. And I laughed because I said, Mel was like, look, I said I paid your bill, girl. Yeah, all that part is true. I just didn't say it was your light bill. He said, oh, okay, you're talking about my show, Nightcap, where Mel was on there and she mentioned that she paid a bill for you while you were going through your divorce. They played the footage from the Nightcap where Carlos asked questions. You know, see, everybody always asks the questions and then they claim that Mel always has their name in her mouth. She gets asked the questions. Anyway, he said, Mel, like you and Destiny had sort of a war of words on social media and you revealed that you helped her out with a bill. Mel said, look, if I see that there's a need, I'm going to do all I can to help you. For example, if I come to your home and I see that there's a utility bill taped to your door, that's enough for me to know that there's a need. He said, was there a notice on the door? She said there was. And I said, well, Mel, you kind of did indicate it was a light bill, or was it a gas bill? I mean, okay, let's be clear and accurate, right? Mel likes things to be accurate, right? So the technicality was, I didn't say light bill. I said utility bill, child. Get it right. Back at the reunion, Destiny says, so yeah, you saying you gave me money for my bills? And Mel said, I didn't say it was for your bills. Carlos said, okay, but she's giving you money for support, right? She said, correct, but we're not going to make it a one-sided friendship to make it come off like Destiny was needy and that Destiny was broke and therefore she needed Mel to bounce back in life. Carlos said, okay, did she say you were broke? Destiny said, I'm saying what the picture was. The picture that was drawn is indicating that I was broke. That's how I felt. Destiny said, and it wasn't clarified that that took place a year ago. Mel said, I don't even clarify everything that was said about me. Destiny said, but you know that that's wrong. And when you know it's wrong and it's affecting my life, she accused Mel of stopping a business situation that was going to take place. But Mel blocked it. Mel said, nope, did not. Now, I'll talk about that bill I paid for you, but I'm not going to claim that one. I didn't. Destiny said, and you want to keep saying that you didn't. And I'm wondering, well, Destiny, if that did take place, if she was trying to stop your bag, your money, things that you needed to take care of you and your son, why were you still so willing and wanting to be friends with her? Why were you continuing to make an issue about trying to hold on to this friendship and trying to remind her of how good of a friendship that you guys had? She had to end the friendship with you. You were still wanting the friendship with her. So it's confusing that if somebody is so evil and has such a dark soul and all these things took place while you were filming this past season, you still wanted to be friends with her. Anyway, Destiny said, if you go around telling people that your friend is a liar and a snake, who is going to want to do business with them? Mel said, her working with somebody does not affect my coins. I don't care. If it's not affecting my coins, I don't care what nobody is doing. And I guess in saying that, Mel is saying, I don't care enough to stop your bag. Okay, but we all know that if you are friends with someone really trusts your word, if you tell them that, hey, watch out for this person because they are a snake and they are a liar, that can potentially have a negative impact on a potential business opportunity. Again, if that person trusts you and they don't know the person that you're talking about, but they know that you know the person you're talking about, then that can stop the bag. But that's that person's decision. If Mel was saying that, hey, I can only assume that she had reason to. Mel is not saying she didn't say it, and she's not saying she did. She's just saying that I don't care enough to stop the bag. I will also say that, if what Mel is saying is true, Destiny, that you were in the room with her op talking about what happened on the stage, and you could kind of hide behind that because I guess you guys are not, neither one of you are going to go into detail about what exactly was said. Both you and Tisha said we were talking about what happened at the reunion, and I'm like, okay, and give us details. Like, for example, what were you saying about what happened on the stage? You, Tisha, you, Destiny, nor you, Mel, are going to get into that. So if in fact Mel said she heard what you were talking about, again, you and Tisha are just saying we talked about what happened on stage. And I'm like, okay, well, you can hide behind that. But if you are my friend and you in my ops room talking about me and the details about my life and what took place on the stage, then yeah, I'm going to have a problem with that because you should be in the room with me talking about me in regards to what happened on the stage, not talking to my op about me and what happened on the stage. And I'm gathering that that is what Mel's issue is. And for that is why she called you a liar and a snake. Because if you did it then, you probably did it another time where I wasn't around. Because why are you so cozy with my op? Mel had probably had it with Destiny because, okay, she's like, you still cozying up with Martel. I get it that Destiny was friends with Martel, has been friends for years, several years before Mel even came into the picture. But, you know, the way that Mel explained it, how Martel is trying to tear her down publicly as far as trying to get custody of the kids and all the things that have taken place, and you're still chummy with him, I'm not going to be able to be friends with you. Destiny should understand that. And then now Not only are you still chummy with him, but now I find out that you cozying up with my op. That's a problem for me. So to her, you are a liar and a snake. That's what I'm gathering, even though they're not giving us specific details. That's what I'm concluding. Back to the reunion, Destiny said, so the fact that the person stopped working with me out of loyalty to Mel is a direct situation that involves her stopping my bag. Carlos said, I want to throw something out there that the fans have put out to suggest what may have been the issue. Now, I told you guys that I'm recording while I'm watching, and Carlos said just that. Mel, do you believe that the issue was Destiny was too chummy with Martel? Martel looked like that is news and a surprise to him. Like, wait a minute, what? Destiny is looking around like too chummy with Martel. Like, wait a minute, what? Mel said, when it came to Destiny and Martel's relationship, was it strange to me that I've been married to him for 13, 14 years and I didn't even know that they were supposed to be such good friends. So not knowing that you guys are supposed to be such good friends, and when I'm on the phone with you and I'm talking to you about this person is causing me so much headache, heartache, and pain and doing things, and we're making a connection because both of our exes, or your soon to be ex at the time, we were, comparing notes, finding that they were very similar, basically bonding. Mel said, so I couldn't understand, with that being the case, why was then Destiny giving him all this conversation? Not wanting to hear that as part of the reason or the reason why the fallout began, Destiny was like, where are we going with this? Mel said she be calling him at 1 and 5 in the morning. Both Destiny and Martel looking like, what? Like, what the? And they looking like, what? That didn't happen? Or what? How you know? Carlos looks at Destiny and Martel and then looks at Mel, and Mel was like, I know something y'all don't. Destiny said, I was calling Martel at 1 and 5 in the morning. Mel said, yep. Martel said, this Martel? Carlos said, how you know that? And Destiny said, oh, you talking about when you hacked his phone? Martel looked spooked like, what? And Carlos just bugged his eyes like, what? And again, Stormy's mouth drops. And for a minute, Mel looked caught off guard. She looked a little stuck for a second, and then she came back to herself and said, no, sweetie, I don't hack into people's phones. Destiny said, oh, yeah, you hacked into his phone and was on his voicemail. She said, Martel, this is Mel. Martel, what reason will I have to hack into your phone? He was like, I have no idea. And Mel said, I didn't hack into his phone. Destiny started laughing, and she gave that laugh like, you are a liar, right? And then she was like, this is amazing. Mel said, but someone attempted to hack into my phone. Carlos said, Mel, you think Martel attempted to hack into your phone? She said, hell yeah, that's why I changed my number the other week. Martel was like, ooh, child. She said, and it's only about 5 people that has my number. Carlos said, have you ever hacked her phone? Martel said, hell no. If people call my phone and I don't answer it, then it goes to her number and then her voicemail comes on, and that's how everybody knows that it's Melody. And I'm like, why are your calls forwarding to her number? That's weird. But anyway, he said, so by that happening, now she's trying to take that and flip it. Carlos said, okay, I want to clear this up. Mel, you were receiving phone calls that had the numbers of people who were reaching out to Martel. Mel said, yes. Carlos said, okay, so if anybody was reaching out to Martel, your phone would ring. Mel said, yes. And Martel said, this is so sad. She said, no, it's not. It's so real. He said, you are so pathetic. She said, no, you are. And your little ugly shoes, too. And I said, not the ugly shoes. And why did the cameraman, of course they did, put the camera right on his shoes? Carlos said, Destiny, would you ever like to reconcile your friendship with Melody? With a quickness, Destiny said no. And that's fine. She's over it. And that's good. She should be, because there was no hope left. She said, but what I do want to clear up is that there's an idea out there that me and Martel are too chummy. She said, let's be clear. I've known Martel since I was 15 years old. Me being a single woman who had moved out of state, there would be no reason me being a single woman to call this man while he's married to her. However, when I moved back and I started dating my ex and things like that, and I moved to Huntsville, that's when he and I reconnected. She said, so you, Melody, are claiming that I'm too chummy with him, but if I cut him off for what he did to you, I have to cut you off for the same reason. And I was like, Mel said, yeah, if I'm on the phone with you and I'm talking to you about what's going on and you like, ha, girl, this Martel calling me right now. Let me call him back. Destiny said, yeah, because I'm not going to never be fake about it. If she's my girl, I'm going to tell her, hey, look, Martel is calling. Melody said, yeah, that's right. And all you did was tell me how Martel was talking about me and how he bashes me. So I'm like, girl, if that's the case, why are you answering his calls? I get it. I really do. Because that would have me wondering, well, you're telling me that all he does is talk bad about me and he bashing me, my name. And you also see what he's doing to me publicly. You're talking to him. And what are you telling him about me? Whether or not you were on the phone with him doing the same thing, that would be my thought process. I would wonder that for sure. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Destiny should have ended her friendship with Martel and they've known each other for all these years. But what I am saying is Destiny was between a rock and a hard place when it came to those two, because she was close with him first and then she became best buddies with Mel. And in a situation like that, you're going to have to stay neutral, completely out of it, meaning you're not listening to what Mel is saying. You're not listening to what Martel is saying. You don't want to hear it because you don't want it to impact the friendship. Either that or you're going to have to pick a side. You're going to ride with your friend Martel, as dirty and as doggish as you have known him to be, or you're going to ride with your girl. I don't know, but it's good that y'all not friends. It wasn't no way that it was going to be able to last anyway because of the demise of Mel and Martel's marriage. Because Destiny, just like you gave the example of somebody said, well, out of loyalty to Mel, they're not going to work with you. Well, out of loyalty to your friendship, you're going to ride with Martel. And you're going to sit on the phone and listen to him bash your girl. Carlos said, Stormy, based on everything that you're hearing thrown around about the two of them, how do you feel hearing these things being said about her? I don't know which her he was referring to, Mel or Destiny, but Stormy said, to be honest, I don't really understand or know what's going on with their dynamic. We haven't had anything happen that was that in depth like they've had with their friendship or her and the rest of the cast have experienced. So I can't speak to their friendship, but they have obviously gone through some shit to get. Okay. So when I speak to the fact of saying we're good, I'm saying because we haven't had any issues. She said, but I do feel like you're really good friends if you have some issues, but you're able to work past it. Being really good friends does not mean that you're able to work past every issue. Now, I mean, it's good that you are, but some issues may be too big to work past. Stormy said, me and Mel, we haven't got there yet. Martel said, retreat now. Because I actually feel sorry for her. And Mel said, I feel sorry for you. Stormy said, y'all want me to not be friends with her, but we are building a friendship. Mel and Martel are telling each other they feel sorry for. I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for you. He said, because you're such a liar and you're so good at it. Mel said, Martel, that's you, but I love the projection. He continued, you're so good at it. Destiny chiming in on the low, talking about he's actually bad at lying. Now he's going over his characteristics, talking about, well, I forgive people. I'm still friends with people. In other words, saying you ain't friends with nobody is what he's trying to say without saying so. He said, little girl, you are horrible. Mel said, you're trying to make a point about me, but my thing is, who sits and continues to be friends with people who blast you and talk about you, saying you don't have a home builder's license, saying you're a liar and all this stuff, right? Why is it then that you would still try to build a friendship with them? She said, it's because you want to have the moment where you can say, I get along with everybody. See, I get along with everybody. And in life, you just can't get along with everybody because everybody don't get along with you. Mel said, I don't do that. He said, you know, that's been my character after all these years. I forgive people. Mel said, well, you cross me, I'm done. And I said, check, because I ain't got no time to be crossed again. That's me saying that. But Mel's point is, if these people, Marceau in particular, as they put the camera on him, if these people are going around saying all these negative things about you, that you're a liar, you don't have a home builder's license, etc., why is it that you want to still be friends with them? Martel said, I forgive people because I want people to forgive me. She said, that's okay too. That's okay too. Like, that's your thing. She said, but you've gone around this whole cast, including Huntsville, talking about me. And you've been doing it for a very long time. He continued with, that's my character. He said, but you've never forgiven anybody for nothing. And I did tell people, if you forgive somebody, don't trust her because she wants something. Really didn't forgive you. She wants something from you. He said, I don't want nothing and don't need nothing. God is my source and has been since I left your dusty ace. He had no comeback for that. He responded with, Carlos said, okay, so I'ma say this. Nice that you, Destiny, and Stormy were able to mend your friendship. And Destiny said, that's what real people do. Girl, that ain't got nothing to do with real people. You and Mel were real friends, but in her mind, you snaked her. Okay, that has not happened with Stormy. Ain't got nothing to do with being real. Stop. And with that, Destiny and Stormy made their exit. Moving on. Carlos says, since the beginning of this series, Mel and Martel, whether it be family or business, has tried to make it work. However, we know that going through a divorce is difficult. but you guys seem to have come to a place where you were at least cordial. What happened to whereas now you two are not able to be in a good place? Martel said, well, I think the idea of co-parenting looks different for both of us. And when we talk about a village and things of that nature, I don't want a man watching my children. And I'm like, man, meaning her brother, their uncle. He said, when we were married, that's something that would have never happened. Carlos said, even if it's their uncle, you feel uncomfortable. And Martel said, I can see if Mel was raised with her brother, but she met him when she was a teenager. And I'm like, okay, so when they were still kids. Carlos said, him being gay doesn't make you feel that way, talking about their uncle. And Martel gave a weak, no, and started stuttering and stumbling a bit, and then said, I don't want a man watching my children, nor do I want 20-something people watching my children, and that's why we are in court now, and that is my issue. Carlos said, Mel, in your opinion, why is it challenging for you two to co-parent? She said, because of the person that I'm being requested to co-parent with and who he is. He said, at the end of the day, he's the one that filed the custody change. So you don't get to start a battle and then think you're not going to finish out the war. I know that's right, honey. And when it comes to these kids, we going to war. She said, I have tried to do the co-parenting situation positively. And this is a lot of stuff that people don't know. I haven't talked about it yet, but I will when I'm ready to. Martel looks like, girl, what? She said, there's 20-something babysitters. To be exact, Martel said 24. She said, come on now, that is so ridiculous. The only people that my kids have stayed with overnight is my mother and my aunt. Other than that, my brother has stayed with the kids overnight at my house. She said it was like 1 or 2 nights. Martel said 2 nights. She said, okay, yeah, 2 nights at my house. One time I had to fly to Texas. Martel was like, I was in town, but I was in town. My thing is, you guys are going through a divorce. You also filed for full custody. And whether you didn't file for full custody or not, you guys are going through divorce. It was her time to have the kids. So she asked her brother, why does every time she goes out of town, if you guys are going through a divorce and it's her week to have the kids, why is she continuing to call you? And besides that, she don't want you all in her business knowing when she's coming and going. Mel said, this is just another one of those cases where Martel is doing what he's doing. And I've been quiet about it for a long time. I've let him run with this whole narrative and put it out there the way he wants to. And when I'm ready to expose it, I will, like I always do, and I will have receipts to back it. Looking at Martel, Carlos said, do you think it was fair to ask for full custody? Martel said, if we can't come to an agreement with sharing custody, then there's no other way. Because if she doesn't have time for the children, then I'll take responsibility myself. Now here go Martel doing Martel. Now this is him doing him. Now he's on the, let me make Melody out to be a bad mother. He's on this train now. Okay, let's go, Martel. Like she said, you ready to go to war? We gonna go to war. So he said, yeah, I'll take the responsibility for the kids myself if you don't have time. And when you do have time, then you can get the kids, period. Moving on from that, Carlos said, one of the things that we did get to see that was refreshing to the audience is your trip to Destin, Florida. And it seemed like old times, and they play the flashback. They play some clips that we didn't even see, and it looked like they were getting along very well. It's interesting since how they ended the show, they are now back in a bad place. And I'm assuming it's because of that custody battle, if not nothing else. In one of the clips, they played the part where Martel was having a one-on-one with Marceau. They were shooting pool. And he said, like, this situation right here, this is what I long for. Very telling, Martel. Very telling. They also played a part of the clip where he told Mel that he takes full responsibility and 100% accountability for what happened because it was his actions that caused the demise of their marriage. He's sitting on this reunion stage watching them play back the clips of his confessional saying how he should have been more patient. They should have had more conversations. And when he got so upset, he had to cut off his own confessional and walk off because he was getting emotional. So Carlos asked Martel, how do you feel seeing this playback? He said, honestly, it's something that I genuinely miss. Carlos says, which is what? Martel says, and then he has to stop. He said, hold on, because he's trying to get his emotions in check. And you can see the sadness and regret all over his face. He's trying to control his level of vulnerability on this stage right now about Melody. He literally cannot answer the question right now. I guess he has a lump in his throat. We all know what that lump feels like. You got to take a minute. Marceau passes tissue to Tisha. Tisha tries to give the tissue to Martel. Martel's like, get that tissue away from me, girl. Like, I don't need no tissue. But you definitely needed a moment. Getting serious and a little psychoanalytical, Carlos said, Martel, I think this is what is happening with you. I think you're troubled inside because you don't want to show this side of you for some reason. And I don't understand why and my concern for you. And then Carlos gets emotional and he has to pause for a moment. Emotionally, he continues and says, I'm very concerned about you. And I'm wondering if Carlos is getting so emotional because he sees man to man, friend to friend, whatever, that Martel is spiraling and kind of just doing things off of emotions and not really settling into what is happening and thinking logically, making logical and doing the best things for himself to move forward. Like maybe his lifestyle and decisions are a little bit erratic because you are losing things and therefore you've somewhat lost yourself. I wonder if that's why Carlos is getting emotional. Not taking anything away from what Martel has done to Melody and the pain that he has caused her, but sitting back objectively and looking at Martel, who I'm assuming is some kind of friend or somewhat to Carlos, is the reason why he's getting emotional. He's like, look, to me, it looks like you're losing control and you're spiraling. And I don't want to see that for you. Mel is going through what she's going through while at the same time she's building herself up. She's building her life. But you, on the other hand, is looking a little questionable as far as what's happening with you. Anyway, like I said, Carlos said, Martel, I'm concerned about you. And Mel starts to get emotional as well. She starts to dab her eyes a little bit. You know, the corner if you feel tears welling up. Now with tears in his eyes, Carlos said, I'm concerned about you because I feel like at one point you had a good heart. And now Mel is visibly crying. But Martel, you had this great heart and I think you're so angry and you feel like you have to put up this facade as being tough and being strong because you're so afraid of showing people that I made a mistake. I think you're still in love with Melody and I think it's okay to say that. And when you say things like, I miss that, that is your family. And at the end of the day, this woman is your family, Melody and your children. And kids feel energy. And I think for the longest time, kids felt energy, the energy of you two being in a bad place. And the thing about Melody and Martel, it's magic when you two are together. Martel, I think you're sad. And I think when you have these outbursts of anger, I think you do that because you're afraid. You're so afraid of being vulnerable. Martel can't even look at Carlos. All he is doing is looking straight ahead. And I 1000% agree with Carlos. Martel is afraid of being vulnerable. That's why for years he would not take accountability for the demise of his marriage until we just seen this past season. Carlos said, you're so afraid of being vulnerable and you are so afraid to admit, I miss my family. And you can see Martel, he's doing everything he can not to break down. He's doing everything to hold in his emotions. Again, he's not looking at Carlos. He's making facial expressions. And you can see he is really struggling with not breaking down because Carlos is telling the truth. Carlos is telling Martel's truth. He asked Martel, do you regret what happened with you guys? Martel said, yes, I regret it. I regret a lot of the things that I put us through because I feel like at one point we did have the perfect marriage. We always had each other's back. And what I miss is our children being able to come home to the both of us. They put the camera on Tisha and Marceau, who are holding hands, and Marceau is looking down. Tisha is looking at Martel. Marceau is looking down like he is in deep thought, like, Lord, I hope this is not me sitting in that seat one day, sitting and dealing with the same regrets. Carlos said, and Melody, you obviously felt the same way. So let me ask you, what makes you get emotional right now when we're talking about this? Mel said, well, because of everything, the divorce, the whole demise of everything in the marriage. Our children are involved and it's saddening. It's saddening when you look at it and you think about it. And at this point, we've been divorced for going on like 2 years now. So for me at this time, it's done. You know, I never would have thought that I would have kids with a man that I ended up not even liking. She said, that's tough and it's very hard. Carlos said, I know that a lot of damage has been done. And what I felt was happening was from the outside looking in, when a woman decides to choose her career and she is at her stardom, I do think that some men feel like, well, what about me? Like, it's not just her, it's us. We're together. It's a me and a her. He said, I know I'm hard on men, but I'm also hard on women too. And I explained to them, the more you rise, you got to remember to hold your man down. And what I mean when I say that is every husband wants to feel wanted. Mel said, I agree that that happens, but that wasn't the case in this situation. I still cooked. I still did a lot of things. And it's obvious that we were still intimately engaging in the bedroom. I mean, the children are evidence of that. Stayed pregnant. A lot of that was in my 20s as well. And us going to Destin is something that we always did 2 or 3 times a year, every year. So no job, career, goals, nothing ever came between that. None of that came between us doing things with our kids and doing things with each other. And I can't sit here and just act like it's a situation where Melody just forgot about her husband. Carlos said, oh, no, I wasn't saying that, but let me ask you a question. If you can do things over again, is there anything that you would have done differently in your marriage? She said, not saying that I didn't listen, but if I had to do it again, I probably would have listened a little bit more. But I feel like at the end of the day, nothing that I would have done would have been enough. And because I'm not a robot, it would have never been enough. Wrapping things up, Carlos said his hope is that they can at least get to a place where we saw them on their trip in Destin, which did appear to be a good place when the season wrapped. We move on from Mel and Martel, and Tiffany and Louis Whitlow joined the stage. Running their package and playbacks, Carlos said, when Tiffany and Louis joined the show, they started off with an energy of newlyweds. But after 2 years, it seems like there was much more to be desired, where long hours seemed to get into the way of intimacy. They ran the clips of Louis in his confessional talking about, look, my hours, Tiffany hours, they've been off for a long time, and there's some pent up frustration behind that. They also showed the part where Tiffany dipped out on the therapy session, you know, when they went on the little therapy retreat or whatever. As soon as they started the therapy session, Tiffany was like, I'm sorry, I gotta bounce. This call is coming in and work is a priority. There is no way to take this off of my schedule. And Dr. Francis says, schedule? Okay, you're gonna schedule yourself right up out your marriage. Coming back to the reunion, Carlos said, how did you guys feel about the couple's therapy trip with Dr. Francis? Tiffany said, well, the only reason why I invited Louis was to support Tisha because Marceau was going. But then I felt set up. So in other words, I really hadn't planned on getting no therapy. We didn't need therapy. I was doing this for you, Tisha. And I'm like, why would you go to therapy and include your husband for someone else who's going for therapy for their marriage? Louis said, yeah, it seemed like it was pre-planned. Marceau said, I think it would have been a good opportunity for you guys to experience this firsthand. And I think that we bonded. Marceau said, we trauma bonded after that, and him and Louis do a fist bump. Carlos said, well, Tiffany, while they bonded, you did not bond with Dr. Francis. The audience picked up on that, and they saw that you were reluctant and you left early. Tiffany, being Tiffany, immediately got defensive and said, well, we talked about this last year. And like I said, everyone has an opinion, just like everyone has an ace in the hole. Y'all know what she said. She said he treated us like we were secondary. We walked in the door. He didn't ask us no questions about our marriage. He knew absolutely nothing about us and instead judged us on the fact that we agreed that we are going to prioritize work. I had a business call that I previously communicated to my husband already. He knew about it. But from there, me taking that call placed me on the should the get list with Dr. Francis. Carlos said, and do you think that you did anything to help contribute to that? And Tiffany said, I communicated early that I had a meeting. And I did this even before we started the therapy session games and even before Tisha and Marceau showed up. I felt like Dr. Francis could have been more excited at the fact that me and my husband actually communicate. Carlos said, a lot of people want to know, how does it feel to be diagnosed as fake? Martel puts his hand over his mouth trying to hold back the laugh. Marceau said, professionally. Louis said, we were never professionally diagnosed as fake. I think that was a comment from Marceau. However, Dr. Francis said, we took our relationship as a game. Louis looked at Marceau and said, can we come up with some better jokes? And see, that's the thing that Tisha and Marceau do. They make fun of everybody else's marriage. They laugh about it. They make jokes about it. But when somebody is talking about them, it's not a game. But they can make lighthearted jokes and jabs and things like that. They did the same thing to Martel. That's why Martel said, you got 20 women. Why are you talking about me? And now they're doing the same thing to Louis, because Marceau is not only making comments, he's making comments and Tisha is laughing. It's not funny. It wouldn't be funny to me. Now, I agree that, we did see them as kind of like, you guys are being very vague. But I'm just making a point of, this is Marceau and Tisha's character as a couple. They laugh at other people who are being talked about in their relationship, with the exception of Kimmy and Maurice. Louis, in all his manhood, said, it ain't nothing fake about this right here. And like I told you last year, just sit back and watch. You got both him and Destiny saying next season, stay tuned. Okay, I will. Carlos said, and obviously the biggest storyline for you two this year is Louis expressing to you that, hey, he's not getting enough time with you in the bedroom, which is different and interesting because last year you guys made it seem like that's all you guys constantly do, or not constantly do, but that there's no problem in that area of your marriage. Louis then baffles me and says, well, we're not talking about it was months. I'm just talking about, a week, a couple of weeks. So you created a storyline on the fact that you guys were not intimate for a week or two. Oh gosh. Okay. And now you wonder why people are saying you guys are fake. He said, but believe me, we were still taking care of business. So if you're wondering why you guys are being diagnosed as fake, don't wonder too long. Just play this back. Play this clip back. Carlos said, is that still the situation? Lewis said, no. And as a matter of fact, and they announced what we all know, that Tiffany is pregnant. She was 4 months along on the stage, but she's further along now as we speak. Everybody is clapping and congratulating them. Tiffany stands up and she actually shows her bump. Over all of the congratulating, Lewis leans over and says, Martel, no assistance needed. What? That's him making a joke. Anyway, Tiffany says, we're having a boy and his name is Ace. Carlos said, okay, well, are you going to make room and time for your baby and your man child? I was like, not a man child. Tiffany said, I will make time. Tisha said, are you going to be a stay-at-home mom? Tiffany whole face said, girl, what? Wait a minute. I will probably be a mom who comes home, but stay home? I doubt it. Obviously in support, Lewis said, no, she is not going to be no stay-home mom. She is building a startup and that's her passion. They move on to something more serious, and that is Kimmy's cancer diagnosis. And they start to play back the clips from Kimmy's journey so far after finding out she tested positive. And while they were playing the clips, you can see Mel reach over to Kimmy, kind of touch her, to give her some type of, physical support, like, here, I'm with you, whatever. And that's probably why Mel was so offended, if not offended, hurt, that Maurice played it down that her and Mel are not friends, because at such a tumultuous time in Kimmy's life, Mel behind the scenes has actually been there. But publicly, Maurice, you made it seem like it's nothing and Mel is not her friend. Anyway, after running the package, Carlos said, Kimmy, I want to thank you for the courage that you have exemplified throughout this entire process. How are you right now? Kimmy said, well, it may look like I'm not okay, but I really am. Carlos said, oh no, you look okay. And she does. She definitely looks good. She said, but it did take me a minute, because I had to go through the whole process of why me? And that's human. She said, why me, the 1 in 8? And it's nothing wrong with having that emotion, because it's not like you're saying why me and not the next person, but naturally you might come across a feeling and emotion of that eventually, like, why me? Why now? Why this? After explaining that, she had that whole thought process of why me, 1 in 8 women. And she has to stop for a minute. Maurice scoots closer to her while she continues and says, and even to decide to go forward on the show, my original thought was to discontinue, not to go on. But she came to the conclusion, being married and being on the show, it helped her to stay active and stay in front of her situation. Because I could have been very sad and just hiding out, staying in my house. She said, but I came to a point to where, as I said, this so disproportionately impacts us as African American women. And it's not just because women are not getting mammograms. Some women can't even afford to get them, whether it be from a lack of insurance or a lack of knowledge base concerning the importance of getting your annual mammograms, because there can be family history. You can have markers in your blood work and it shows up that you are predisposed, which then means you have to go more often and you have to go earlier. She said, I went for my annual in December and I found out about this June 14th. Which shows you that's how fast the particular cancer that she has grows. She said, and at this juncture, I'm thugging this out. I'm a whole Pebble Beach about it at this point, because I'm going to get past this. I started off with 20 weeks of chemotherapy ahead of us, and now I only have 7. After I'm done with the 7 sessions of chemo, I have to have surgery. And then after the surgery, I have to have 30 treatments of radiation. As we currently see, Kimmy has lost all of her hair. I don't know if you've seen any pictures of her online, but she looks beautiful with or without it. Emotionally, she said, regardless of the outcome, my situation is going to help the next person. That's where my mind is at this point, and that is wholeheartedly where I've resolved it in my heart. What a very good headspace to be in, that your situation is going to be a mission to help someone else. That in itself is a good headspace, because it's going to help you fight and fight differently. You're fighting for yourself and to be of help to someone else. Emotionally himself, Carlos responds and says, you guys know that I'm very private, but I lost my mom due to breast cancer. And unfortunately, my mother never went to the doctor, and she decided to go through it all in secret. Oh my gosh, how painful to not even have the chance to be there for your mother at such a time as her dealing with having breast cancer. He continued and said, and he knows that the majority of the population that view this show are Black women. I believe that you are helping so many women decide to get up off the couch and get checked out, because you know so many black folks, they're afraid to go to the doctor now. If they don't see blood, they not going. He said, and before my mom passed, she absolutely loved this show. Said, and in my dreams, my mother told me to share this story because of Kimmy, your bravery. And Kimmy just puts her head down. And Carlos said, because my mom doesn't want any woman to go through what she went through. And based on your honesty to share this on the reality show that people like to phrase it as, I believe that wholeheartedly you are changing so many lives. Carlos then starts to talk about dense breast. Okay, so now they're giving further education about having ultrasounds and how a lot of women don't know about that. And not only that, a lot of times they are not just offered by the doctor. Kimmy explains, yes, that you have dense breasts. They can't see through them, so they have to do an ultrasound. I know personally, I went through that experience with one of my boobs and was scared to death when they called me back, because I never had to go back for anything other than my mammogram, excuse me. So when they actually offered themselves, hey, we would like to do an ultrasound, the doctor explained to me what dense breasts are in a more practical way. And she said that you have a clear sky. Just imagine a clear sky. You can see everything. You're good. Then sometimes you have a sky that has some clouds in it, little cumulus clouds, but you can still see the sky. However, when you have dense breast, that's a sky that's full of clouds and you can't really see what's on the other side of those clouds. Therefore, you need to have an ultrasound to make sure nothing is hiding. So that's what it means to have that ultrasound. So I will say this, ladies, if you go to the doctor for your mammogram and you ask the doctor, hey, so what's this thing about having dense breasts? Ask them, are my breasts dense? If they say yes, ask for that ultrasound. Thankfully, nothing was on the other side of mine and everything came back fine. Okay. But that is good education that they're putting out at the end of this show, because I never knew anything about dense breast at all. Anyway, after that, Carlos continues to tell her how good she looks. Again, she does. And he raps and says, okay, you know what? On this reunion, a lot of things have been said. It's been tough. And although relationships might not be where they used to be, life is short. And you have to be able to love on those that you're able to love on while they are still on earth. With that, thank you. They end the show. That's the end of the reunion. That's the end of the season, child. Thank you all for joining me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell button. And until next time, I'll see you again for Love and Marriage in DC. All right. Take care. Peace.